I think much to everyone's surprise, I'm actually really excited about this chapter, and I can't wait to get better translations to really address everything that happened within it, because this is one of those chapters that leads into me having multiple different just things to talk about in context of the story, larger scale events that obviously are being set up for later, as well as just general like information that we got from this chapter, not just about Celine, but also about Diablos. The Diablo stuff is super interesting to me because it actually further gave information towards a theory that I had about Suzaku, but it looks like it might be going to Georg instead, and I'll get to that momentarily. But essentially, like, this chapter, like, I think a lot of people are surprised that, really, by a lot of stuff, but Celine getting hurt like she was, there were some people pointing out that she mentioned getting hurt by pretty much being cut up by Kuranuki's blade was something that she, like it wouldn't be that bad for her. And I don't know, like, some people have been speculating that on, like, the idea of her letting it happen. I don't think she let Suzaku did it. I think it was one of those cases where she just didn't take Suzaku seriously enough, and then by the time he, like, decided, you know, he whipped out this, like, super technique that he developed, so something completely new from Kuranuki's whole style that he had, that she just, well, you know, she wasn't kind of, like, mentally as prepared for it. Like, I think if Celine was, like, actually in the, like, full battle mentality and, like, fully, like, ready for someone that she actually would see as an opponent rather than Suzaku, who she's clearly been toying with, then she probably would have been fine. I think it's just one of those cases where, because of where she was at mentally, that really screwed her. Look at kind of like August when he got stabbed by Brandish. Obviously, Brandish is even admittedly so far below August that in, like, an actual fight, it wouldn't really matter. Whereas you can get the drop on somebody way more powerful than you if they give you the opening and whatnot. So that's at least for right now, because, like, one, Celine, I think anybody can just guess, just looking at the chapter itself with, even in barely double-digit IQ, like, if you were somebody who just barely paid attention to this whole series, you would know, like, obviously Celine's not done. Like, she's gonna get away. This is also one of the things that I've been talking about since Celine kind of showed up as an enemy, is that even if they get her to a spot where they can beat her, they have to prevent her from getting away. Like, she can just leave, which is another thing. Like, I feel like if Celine really wanted to, like, if she was really prepared for it, she could have just pointed at the moon and teleported Suzaku somewhere else, completely just laughed off his attack. But I think it was just, like, where Celine was at that kind of, like, screwed up, because she was like gonna just take that head on, whereas we already saw from her other attacks that she casually is faster than Suzaku, and even in this chapter, she's using techniques that Suzaku is, like, completely astonished at how fast they are, and we know that she's not even going all, this is just her starting to get serious. She hasn't even gotten in her dragon form, like, she's not even really using anything that crazy outside of just kind of, like, plain attacks, and then, like, raw attack stuff, because even, like, the power it would take for her to, like, mess with the moon that she did, mess with Earthland over in a completely different dimension. Those are just kind of like raw power things. I guess when it comes to messing with a planet in another dimension, it is cross a dimension, so there's a little bit of, like, extra power in there. But for the most part, it's just kind of like raw energy kind of, like, usage. Whereas, like, she should have a lot of just, like, tricky hacks abilities up her sleeves and whatnot. But on top of, like, the end when she's, like, getting away, the fact that it was revealed that Kuranuki was one of her sons is, like, a huge piece of information that goes into both the current story, because it's going to go to Suzaku, and it's going to eventually give us information from Suzaku's standpoint. Like, the fact that Suzaku was there for whenever this dragon was defeated, it's like, okay, we're going to have to see that flashback at some point. We don't need a full flashback chapter, but I assume we're going to get, like, a couple pages of, like, the events that either of the fight or, like, right afterwards, maybe. Like, it would be really weird if we didn't get something to kind of, like, flash back at the spectacle of Kuranuki versus Georg and Suzaku, which I'll get to right now, because, like, the Georg stuff is really interesting to me. So I did a video a couple weeks ago on the idea that Suzaku would have 2 Dragon Slaying types. And the reason for that is because if he beat a dragon, that would mean that he had to have had Dragon Slaying magic beforehand. And in my theory about it, I was like, well, okay, well, maybe the difference between the 4 Black Dragon Slayer Knights and the rest of Diablos is that they had Dragon Slaying magic beforehand, then they got more, and they assisted the younger version, like, maybe not younger, but kind of like the lower ranking members of Diablos in their hunts that got their dragon powers. But actually seems to be the case, but not for Suzaku. Seems like that's what Georg did, because logically, if that's how it was, then Suzaku didn't have dragon slaying magic beforehand. He needed Georg there to do the job. He even calls Georg the true dragon eater. So obviously Georg would be the one that would have dragon slaying magic before the events of Diablos, and logically being the first dragon. I'm wondering if it's going to lead down the whole idea, because I would assume that if it's not way more recent in the history of things, it's got to be like way further back. Like if it's not something around like between stuff with Celine, Irene, Acnologia, and then maybe like all the way up to like LF Seria, if the history of Diablos and Georg isn't somewhere within there, it would have to be recent. And I think that it would make sense because it's 5th generation, like it's the newest one, but it could be one of those ones where it's just like it was older than say like 3rd or 4th, but it just wasn't classified yet, maybe, and now it's just kind of like 5th in classification, so it's 5th generation Dragon Slaying magic. It could easily be older because there is like it's like a weird theory, but it's one that I've seen other people bring up as well. So I'm a little bit less tinfoil hatty in talking about it. Is that if Georg ate Acnologia's arm? Because it is something to think about. Like, Acnologia's arm was ripped off by Ignil and is existent somewhere out in the world, at least at one point. So, like, if somebody found it, through whatever reason somebody obtained Acnologia's arm, and then ate it, you'd not only be getting, the effects of a dragon, because, how dragon eaters work, you consuming the dragon meat, it's giving the power, you'd be going after this, it'd be from the strongest dragon. So, it would logically make you way more powerful, way faster. Because I would assume that, like, eating the same dragon isn't going to be the same. Like, a low-level generic dragon isn't going to be the same as eating one of the dragon god, chunks of meat and stuff. I think anybody can assume that. That just seems logical. But if the ideas with Georg are correct, not only will it will have big story importance for him and like his backstory and like how it all relates to this, but it might mean that he has multiple dragon elements, and I'd be very curious as like where Mishima could take that, because we haven't had a whole lot with the dual elements, and I think the dual elements, I still got to do a video on it because I think I know how the dual elements work. But like, what if we had somebody like Georg who was an antagonist, not just a dragon star, but had dual elements? Maybe not like full antagonist, but he could be somebody that is opposing to the guild and main cast at some point, or he's an allied. We could have somebody that maybe regularly switches between elements, because if he's eating dragon meats, and we know that eating the dragon meat gives you that specific power, because I was wondering if it was like, I like how my assumptions, estimations on how the Dragon Slayer Lacrima work. Like, assuming you have a magic, like Laxus having lightning magic, like you had lightning magic beforehand, inserted a dragon lacrima in your body, it becomes a lightning dragon lacrima. Or same thing with Cobra, or Sting and Rogue. Whatever magic you have mixes with the lacrima, and it becomes a dragon slaying type of that, of that attribute. That's at least the assumption that I've had. It hasn't been confirmed if it's like the lacrima are set to whatever the attribute is beforehand or what. But that was also what I believed with dragon eating. Well, it's like, oh, you eat the dragon meat, dragon power mixes with other magic you have before. Because I was like, well, okay, that means like it'd be, it would be more of like explaining why you have dragon eaters with really weird types. Because it'd be like, oh, a sticky dragon, maybe that's not a real dragon that lives naturally. It's just because Nibiru had like a glue, sticky, adhesive magic, ate part of a dragon, gained sticky dragon slayer man, the whole clinging dragon. It was like, okay, that makes sense, but from what we got from Suzaku, you gain whatever dragon slayer attribute the dragon had, which means all those dragons exist naturally. So from that bit of information, it would mean that someone like Georg, who's possibly eaten multiple dragon meats, would have multiple dragon attributes, which is really cool. I definitely want to see him in action, because this holds a lot of weight for his character. And based off of what Suzaku did in this chapter, and regardless of, like, if he just caught Celine in a bad spot or whatever, it would further hype Georg. And I have been, like, under the maybe that Georg could be on level with one of the Dragon Eaters, or one of the Dragon Gods. I could see that. I could see him be, on level with one of them, but maybe just not be as, like, knowledgeable or as nearly as reaching. Because, like, one thing about dragons, they're dragon slayers, that's a big difference. Dragon slayers are still wizards. They're still dependent on magic. Whereas a dragon can run on magic and be fine because they can use magic, they aren't dependent on magic. Kind of like how the Aetherius are. They use curses, but they can also use magic. Dragons don't, they don't run into the same effects when they run out of magic. They just use their natural dragon abilities. And you can look at when Face went off. All the magic in the area was wiped out. The only dragon that fell from sky, Loki, because he's a wizard at the end of the day, whereas the natural dragons, were all fine. Georg has a lot of hype for me. I'm very interested in what Georg can do, and I really want to see how he's going to be, displayed in the future arcs available to us, and like when he's going to show up and actually do stuff. I would assume that after this arc, he's going to start making a move. Like, the only logical step between that and now would be sending all the dragon, all your best dragon eaters. Like, not just the Black Dragon Slayer Knights, but also any good people in Diablos left at whatever problem you have. That's the only step I could see before Georg stepping in, but I'm hoping Georg steps in earlier, maybe right after this arc. Because Georg can be what God Serena kind of felt like he was going to be before he made the terrible decision to fight Acnologia. And I know, it's really weird, because, I know people always get salty when it comes to God Serena, but it's like, yeah, I wanted more from God Serena, but that's logically what was going to happen for his character, based off of what he was trying to accomplish. If you swapped them, and Georg was trying to do the same thing, and Georg got mauled, I'd be like, man, what did you expect? That's what happens. You definitely don't go seeking out somebody that can completely demolish you with no problem, and then be surprised when you get demolished. I mean, it's just... You should be prepared. Be more aware of what you're going into. But yeah, I'm very much excited for Georg. All the Georg information that we got this chapter, I can't wait to see what's next for it and where it all goes. Just based off of what that one panel that Suzaku gave us really entails to. Because, the stuff with Suzaku is really cool. I like the stuff with Kuranogi and, the obvious reveals we got with Celine. And we even got some bits in the chapter from Wendy, because we know that Wendy is connecting the hands to Face, and I still haven't figured it out. That's, one of the only things right now I can't figure out what the real connecting point is. Because, obviously, I know, Face, hands, parts of the body. One is the opposite. One completely moles out magic, or one goes only crazy when there's too much magic. It's, the only thing I can think of right now is if they have similar origins, like if they were made by the same person, because we don't know anything about Face's origin, and we don't know anything about these hands' origin. That's the only thing I can really think of. Maybe they were made by somebody, unless they're a naturally reoccurring thing of the world that even if nobody was around, they would just spawn automatically. They were, I don't know, I feel like they had to have been made by somebody. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, at least as of right now. Because we didn't have anything like that in Edelus, and I don't really know off the top of my... I haven't figured out anything that Mishima is trying to do with this as of right now. I can see a lot of the other stuff that he at least sets up to a degree. I'm not I know everything he does, but I can see when he's doing something and try and connect pieces of it to try and figure out what he's doing. Whereas, the stuff with hands and face, I don't know. I still haven't figured that out. I feel like Wendy at any point could drop a line of information that could make me just smack my forehead and realize, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Or it could be something completely new and leading into information that is still alien to us. I don't know. Maybe it'll lead into gods and stuff like Og-Saram. I don't know. Either way. The stuff with the Whiteout Village, I like them. I like that they aren't just kind of there being useless. Even if they can't do anything, I like that they're trying. I'm always a fan when characters, despite their odds are always against them. They're like, yeah, we have to at least do something. That's one of the reasons I really liked the weaker members of Fairy Tail, actually, like, the Mishima figuring out a way to have, like, the weaker members actually do something in the Doom fight. I really liked that. I thought that was really good, and it made me very happy. I'm always happy to see characters actually put up and do everything they can in the scenarios. Like it's not like, oh, you know, they're doing some competition. Like the Grand Magic Games, I think it's a good example of what I was talking about, just as a real quick, you know, explanation of what I'm talking about. Grand Magic Games, like, a lot of the Fairy Tail members weren't doing anything, but it's, like, not the style. Like, because of where they were at, it's like, well, of course they weren't going to do anything. There's only so many people who compete. They're not going to put the weaker people in and whatnot. Whereas, like, this stuff in Tartarus and Alvarez, even the really weak people, even people like Romeo were like, yeah, we got to do stuff. We got to do everything we can. This isn't one of those scenarios where you can kind of, like, lay back and be like, well, I'm not strong. I can't really do anything, so I might as well stand. It's like, you can figure something out, man. And even if you can't, yeah, you know, you're still going to be useful on the battlefield. Like, unless you're so incapable to the point you're hindering other people, I'd say, like, do everything you can. But anyway, yeah, the stuff with the hands, I definitely want to find out what's going on with them. Everything with the Whiteout Village, I thought they were doing really good. And there was some stuff in the fan translation I was so confused about when, like, the Whiteout Priestess was talking about the eagle. I don't really know what that meant. I feel like that was just a mistranslation. I'd be willing to bet if it's unless it's translated between the fan translation, you know, because there's, like, the first fan translation, second fan translation, and then the official translation. But unless it's translated between the other 2 points of translation, between the next fan translation and the officials, to be something important, I probably won't talk about it much. Like, unless it's translated better and it turns out to be something important, like it's some character or being that is hinted at that we haven't seen yet, I probably am not going to talk about it too much. But outside of that, I thought that was pretty odd. It might just be a fan translation thing, I don't know. But all the Sumeaku were starting to come out of the hands nails. They're just like these weird, formless creatures. You know, we saw them before. These ones definitely seem a little bit more mad. One thing I did notice about the hands, if you go back and look at the hands when they first entered, there was that, like, symbol that went around one of the hands. Like, it went around one of the fists, like it was being controlled or something. I assume that was Celine, but we don't see any of that here, so it's just something to kind of note. Like, that event didn't occur. So whatever caused that is not present in this, in the rest of the scenario that is transpiring with the hands right now. That's when we get back to the Celine and Suzaku stuff. Suzaku is definitely, like, still in a bad spot. Like, it looks like he's barely able to stand even after doing that attack. And I'm guessing that attack is, like, that's like Dragon Force for Natsu. Because Suzaku has Dragon Force, we know, like, you know, logically Nabaru had it, Suzaku has it. But we know that their Dragon Force is treated way differently than Natsu's. Because Natsu's is more like a power-up. Natsu's is way more like this Super Kunonugi sword art, where it's like, I have this, I can use this, it's really powerful, but if I use it, then that's pretty much it. Because once Natsu uses Dragon Force, he's pretty much done. He's like, this is my all-in, this is my trump card form. After this, I don't, like, at least as of right now, he doesn't have anything beyond that. So once he gets to that, it's just like, I've gone through everything. Like, this is it. Like, he still has stuff like Savage Dragon Fire, but it's like, I don't see him just pulling that out, even just, like, look, once Dragon Force is out, unless if he's, like, boosted, like, somebody gives him magic, or he's able to eat some fire, if he's literally at 0 magic, and he doesn't figure out some way to kind of get back on his feet, some way to kind of get power, then I don't really see what he can do. I know that it was not the same scenario when he fought Zeref, because obviously there was messing around his Aetherius book and whatnot, but it's the general scenario, I think. Specific scenario variables are one thing, but say, like, just like Natsu versus powerful generic bad guy 1, he pulls out Dragon Force. I don't think he's just going to whip out Savage Dragon Fire out of nowhere if he can, just based off nothing. But when it comes to Suzaku, I would assume that's the same way. Because similar to like Savage Dragon Fire, Dragon Force would be like an all-in's all-in. Because Dragon Force for 5th gen, it doesn't seem like there's coming back. Unless an outside force stops the Dragonification, it seems like once they enter it, they lose all their sanity, they start becoming wild and uncontrolled, and then they just become dragons. I would assume that with how theirs works, until you gain your sanity back and then figured out how to turn yourself back into at least a human form, you're probably stuck. And that extra layer of, being a wild, uncontrolled dragon is definitely going to be a big factor in it, because, it can obviously lead into, someone coming after you. Like, what if somebody, like another dragon slayer decided, like, well, I got to go hunt that dragon down. But it's kind of the same way for Savage Dragonfire, because though Dragon Force and this, super Kuriduki Black Blade or whatever style that he's got, though those will, like, drain them, they're not, like, borderline, like, their last ditch possible efforts. Like when not, like after Savage Dragonfire, like Natsu's arms, or like anywhere that fire touches his body, he's all burnt up, destroyed. Suzaku obviously wouldn't be able to control himself after going Dragon Force, so it's just like, it's like you're just, I guess, last resort versus trump card, really, when you look at it. It's like, yeah, it's like Lost Aspect for Gray. Like, really, it's like, you have everything Gray can do. I guess Gray's is really two last resorts, because he's got Ice Shell and then Lost Aspect, but you know what I mean? Where it's just like, yeah, I have this in my arsenal, but I'm not going to just use this. This is a special day kind of occasion move. But at the end of the chapter, like, obviously, Celine is hurt. Celine is damaged. She's got to get away. She's making one of her portals. And again, I mentioned, this is an example of why they have, like, she's going to be difficult to defeat. Because though Celine is hurt here, I think anybody can guess she's not done. She's not, like, done as a antagonist. My belief is that she's going to get away and heal herself. Because at the start of the chapter, we're talking about, like, if Celine isn't stopped right now, then the hands are just going to go, they're pretty much going to destroy the world. So this is an event that will lead to, a ceasing of the hands temporarily, Celine having to recover, and gives time for the main cast and Suzaku, and hopefully more Diablos members, to kind of group up, heal, rest, and get ready for a much later fight with Celine. Like when Celine was leaving, all I was thinking about was her going back to her hot spring, and it being something kind of like the Lazarus Pit from DC. Like, she's going to get into it, she's going to heal, and she's going to come out fresh and renewed, but maybe a little bit more crazy, a little bit more hostile. I know some people were discussing that her goals and her beliefs and, like, ideas could relate back to her children, but, like, I don't really know. We know that male dragons they don't raise their young. It's like all on the females, so it makes sense why Celine, despite her nature, would still care about her offspring. Like, she's still a mother at that point, and we know that the dragon fathers aren't around, but I would assume if it's in their culture, the mothers around them, they're still going to have a lot of those motherly instincts. And you can kind of compare it to, like, Igneal's an outlier, but, like, compare it to, like, the members of the Dragon Slayer kind of plan. You look at all of the male dragons, and then you look at Grandine. Grandine definitely did a bit extra with Wendy, like keeping an eye on her, like going through poor Lucica to make sure stuff gets to her. She had a little bit more of a hands-on role, and I think that's a little bit of a nod that kind of gives credit to that as well. Like, I wish we had a couple more female dragons. I don't count Irene. Irene's a weird case, but plus Irene's also not a natural dragon. But it's still a present thing that it's like, okay, it makes sense why she would have care for her offspring. Whereas, like, her actually having to, mention that was one of her sons, and, that would very clearly bring up some upset that would make sense of why she would have, like, a little bit of a mood shift. And I personally think that's one of the things that kind of screwed her up in this chapter, was just that opening that Suzaku must have got from that point. Because Celine definitely looked like she was a little bit rattled there. Like, not like, oh man, I'm shaking, I messed up, but just kind of like, she just wasn't in her right mindset. Like she just got completely, just saying that kind of like took her off her, took her off her stability for a moment. But yeah, so like the way that the chapter ended is definitely going to be like a really big, like it's gonna be a really big scenario builder for like the next chunk of the arc, because the status of Celine is important for, like, the whole world, and it gives, like, if she's down for, like, a day or something, that gives time for, like, the main cast and everybody to figure out what exactly they're going to do now. And it also gives time for Celine to kind of, like, regather herself, because now that she doesn't have any of the Moonlight Beauty gods, they're not dead, but I would assume she's not just going to take him back. Like, if she just takes him back and nothing really changes about them, like, and she just kind of like, all right, we'll give it another try. Like, that'll be some, I don't know. I won't be okay with it just based off of the fact that, like, she already tried to kill Ferris. I would assume that she's not going to tolerate the Moonlight Beauty Gods, like, failing. She's probably going to kill at least one or two of them. I don't know. I could see Yoko dying. Mimiya I could see surviving, and then I would hope that she wouldn't kill Hakune just based off Hakune seemingly being like the leader-esque role, but I could easily see her killing her off as well. We'll see. It's really just going to depend on like what Mishima plans to do with them. Like, Celine's in a spot both physically and emotionally where she could be very quick to aggressions and very hostile, so I could definitely see the Moonlight Beauty Gods getting just kind of grounded and just dusted in the next chapter or two. So as of right now, I'm assuming that once the next chapter starts, Celine is going to get away, Natsu's going to get there, and Suzaku's pretty much going to, like, Suzaku's not going to be able to do anything to Natsu, so this is going to be a good opportunity for them to talk and figure out like where they're going to go from here, because there's no way that they're going to catch up with Celine. Celine's going to get away. Natsu's not just going to capture Celine. I don't know, it'd be really weird if they ended up capturing Celine, because it'd be like you wouldn't even be able to kind of like keep her there, because if even if you capture her, it's not like shackling up Brandish or Demaria. Like, sealing up Celine's magic doesn't do anything to her in reality, because she's still a dragon. She still has all her dragon abilities. She just turned into a dragon form and ripped the shackles or something. So we'll see. But like I said, there was a lot this chapter to really go around, and I was very happy about that. Despite Celine getting into a bad spot, getting slashed up a little bit. One, she's obviously not done. Two, this gave so much general information and a lot of stuff for multiple characters and just different areas and moving parts right now within the 100 Years quest that I can't wait to talk about. I've already got some videos prepped up that I'm going to put out within the next few days coming out of this chapter. Like, I'm definitely going to do a Georg talk. And I think now that the Georg statement happened that I was talking about, I have to do a video that I've been planning on talking about, just about Dragon Slayers in general. So look forward to that. I still got to do my next, the one archive video. I'm going to do that on White Dragon Slaying Magic, which conveniently is also lines up for a video on Sting I got to do still. But, you know, they're online. They're going to get done. I was really happy with this. When I first read the chapter, this is closing thoughts. When I first read the chapter, I was kind of like really confused because I didn't have context. It was more of like me trying to figure out a little bit just based off not a lot and kind of gauging what's happening on the panels. So going off of that and then looking at how the chapter ended, I was kind of like a little confused. But once we start getting context, I was really excited because like I said, the stuff about Georg, the stuff about Celine's son, which she says son, so she's gonna have more. So who knows where her other dragon offspring are? And I would assume that she's gonna have daughters if she has, she's got sons. I would just assume at least, but we'll have to see on that one, because she didn't just say he was my son. She says sons. I think even in the Japanese version, like, she specifically classifies it as plural. So maybe that'll be her next move. Maybe after the Moonlight Beauty Gods, her minions will just be dragons. It'll be her offspring. That'd be actually really cool. And I think it would be really perfect for, like, a female dragon main protagonist, for her brood to be part of the, part of the antagonist kind of, like, grouping. I think that'd be really sick. So it's like you're also just fighting all of her offspring, all the people that she's got directly under her, because it would make sense. And especially because, like, with the males, you couldn't really do that because we know that they don't really hang out with their offspring, but clearly they do with the females, so I'd be willing to bet she... And on top of that, like, she knows a lot of stuff, so I'd be willing to bet she knows where they are and she knows how to communicate with them. Maybe Karanuki is just one that she had no idea where it happened to him, and obviously, like, him dying, it would make sense of why she wouldn't. But anyway... other than that, though, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about this chapter. Like I said, I'm very amped. I'm very amped just based off of all this information. These are fun chapters for me. Like, even on the idea of Celine getting hurt, like I said, there was so much stuff just for me to look at, to think about, for like content for people to talk about. It really builds up for it, and on top of that, it set up a really interesting spot for the next portions of the arc to lead off from, because we just got finished with these fights. And I don't think anybody expected Celine to get hurt like this, but it will definitely get it in an area that would make sense of why like they could have some downtime, and why Celine hopefully will take them more seriously next time. Because I was mentioning a little bit earlier, like, I think Celine, if she was, like, fully ready to fight, like, Suzaku, like, in her full battle mindset, I don't think Suzaku would have really landed it. To kind of compare it, it's kind of like, at least in my head, it's not the same circumstances, but it's kind of like over recently in Black Clover with Dante versus Magna. In reality, Dante, like, spoilers for anybody who just doesn't read Black Clover, or maybe isn't that far, just so you know. I mean, they're like 30 minutes in the video, so, I mean, this is a fairy tale video, but still. I assume most of the people on my channel read or watch Black Clover. Well, I guess watching wouldn't work, but you know what I mean. Spoilers, anyway. So, I don't think anybody really expected Magna to be Dante, outside of the people that knew that he's like a main cast member and he had something tricky up his sleeve. Outside of that, I think just looking at it from the standpoint of what you know at the time, it's like, well, there's no way that he's going to be Dante. And that was the kind of same thing with Suzaku versus Celine. And actually, I'd be kind of willing, I'd be really curious as to, like, if Celine wasn't trying to leave, if she could still just kill Suzaku, like, could she just turn into her dragon form and squish him? Or open a portal and drop him, you know, freaking into a volcano or something? It looks like she's just kind of, like, being really cautious and trying to get away before any further danger happens, but we'll see. But yeah, I was saying, like, it kind of reminds me of, like, how Dante could have killed Magna immediately in the fight if he took him seriously, but because he didn't take him seriously enough, he ended up getting caught in a technique that screwed him over, just based on how it worked. And I kind of feel like that's how it was with Celine. Because, like, if he landed this on, like, Acnologia or Alderaan, or like, Merciful, I really doubt they would have had that much problem with it. I think it was just one of those scenario variables that kind of, like, hurt Celine a little bit. But I think it'll be good if... Not because of this, next time they meet, she's like, yeah, no fucking around this time. We're fighting seriously. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, but from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Better than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.